So I think many people would agree that making fire in wet conditions can be quite a hassle. It's a little bit more challenging than when it's nice and dry. Now, if you really think about it, making fire isn't the difficult part. It is more of creating a sustainable fire. And what I mean by that is that many of us carry along lighters and matches and man-made fire starters that are going to give us a flame. The problem becomes growing that flame into something larger, making it sustainable so we have a nice big campfire in front of us. That is the hard part during wet conditions. So today we're going to look at a few different things that you can do to make that less hassle. Now, just as with any fire, when we gather our materials, we want small, medium, and large material. But when it comes to wet weather fires, we want to gather more small material than we do on a dry day. So honestly, be a little bit more picky and take a little bit more time to gather the proper materials. What we're looking for is very, very small stuff. And the reason for this is that small little flame we start with our fire starter, that needs to dry out and actually get that material burning. So I can just reach behind me here and I have this very small material. Now this stuff is about the size of a toothpick all the way out to about the size of lead, and this is what I'm looking for. This is going to be able to dry out that much more efficiently. The next tip is almost a step backwards in the process, and that is to create your own dry material. With everything being wet out here, finding something dry is almost impossible unless you know where to look. Grabbing a larger branch, dead of course, yields good dry material. So how does that actually work, you might be thinking? Well, inside here, even though the outside's all wet, inside is going to be nice and dry. It's something that we can use to help extend that flame a little bit bigger. Now to do this, you don't have to baton this, you don't have to split this, you don't need an axe. You just take your knife and start to cut away. Discard those outside shavings. Those outside shavings are going to be worthless because they're all wet. Inside though, once we get to that dry wood, those shavings we want to keep, and we're going to create our fine small material with those inner shavings. And because they're dry, they're going to take a flame very, very well, and then those shavings are going to help aid that flame source to grow bigger and ultimately dry out that small material we just talked about in the last segment. And then lastly, what directly affects the fire lay, but not the components of the fire lay, is the ground that you're building the fire on. The ground, of course, in wet condition is going to be wet itself. So what we need to do is create something between the fire and the ground. It's going to just give us that much more of an advantage when initially getting that fire to grow. This is easily accomplished by taking dead wood and splitting it down. Again, that outside might be wet, but the inside is going to be dry. So once we split that down, simply lay the dry facing pieces upward, and this gives us a perfect platform to build a fire. As the fire continues to grow, it's going to heat up, dry out the ground. By the time you burn through that platform, the ground is going to be dry. The fire is going to be big enough and large enough that you don't have to worry about the wet ground sucking any heat out of your fire. So I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Just a couple tips and tricks that I use all the time during wet weather, and especially here in Pennsylvania, it is raining every day. So it's just like, this is like almost my life at this point of using these tricks to get my fires going fast and efficiently. So I hope you like it. As always, check us out at coalcrackerbushcraft.com. Click the subscribe button below if you already have not. And until the next video, stay in the woods.